My name is John Scanlon. I grew up in St. Paul, went to medical school here, went off to Cook County to do an internship, and off to California, residency, then some time in the military, and then came back here, was 14 years at St. Paul Ramsey in the pre-Regions days. People are talking about the nurses, and this is going to cost $1 million. Nobody is talking about what some of these other accoutrements cost on a daily basis. You know, the hospitals build buildings, build things sometimes through generous donations of people. So the upfront cost may not be the hospital, but you have to maintain that stuff. You have to maintain those big waiting rooms, those waterfalls. You need to clean them, heat them. Big two-story kind of atriums are very expensive to maintain as compared to other kinds of things. So there's a lot of attempts to make it look very inviting and warm and comfortable. And matter of fact is people go to the hospital because they're sick, and I don't know that they are as much concerned about how warm and some of those other kinds of things. Is there somebody there to take care of me or take care of my family member? I think that's the primary issue that we have to be looking at. Do we need all those things? We ought to be looking at first things first. Well, patients are in the hospital because they're sick and they need some sort of care, otherwise they wouldn't be there. And so if you have inadequate nursing to watch IVs, to see that they don't run dry, to monitor degree of pain, monitor mental status, is the patient awake or not awake, it seems that you're going to start to have adverse outcomes. And it maybe the adverse outcome is that it costs an extra day in the hospital. The patient goes home healthy, but you've added a whole day of cost onto it. Another adverse outcome is they maybe get bed sores and go home. So there's all sorts of adverse outcomes that can come out of that. But it makes sense that if you have inadequate staffing to meet the needs of the patient, you're going to have adverse outcomes. They burn out and they look for other things to do. They go to an outpatient clinic, a doctor's office, some other place, or they do something entirely different. They go find an 8-hour-a-day job with an insurance company. They have weekends off. They don't have any evenings. They don't have nights. They don't have. I always thought the worst shift was the 3 to 11. But the nurses, you know, and it's expected they're going to do that. And expected if somebody's in trouble when the end of their shift comes, the other nurses are coming on, they stay on. They don't walk out, well, it's 3 o'clock, I'm going home. It's 3 o'clock and we got some really sick patients. I need to stay around until we get this all stabilized, and then I can go home. So it's a hard life. And I think it's a growing problem now. It's pretty expensive to go through nursing school in this day and age with the tuitions. And there are no more 3-year nurses. It's all 4-year nurses and sometimes 5-year nurses. And so they're going off to do nursing, carrying a debt. And there are other areas in the medical field that pay better. They could go in some of the other supportive services, occupational therapy, physical therapy. Some of those other specialties may take as much school, but they typically don't have nights, weekends. They don't have the sense of responsibility. When a nurse is on and working with sick people and something goes bad, even though it's not the nurse's fault, we're all human, we take it on. If only I had, or maybe I should have. And they go home with that. You don't go home with that in other kinds of professions necessarily. And there's a lot of life and death kind of matters that are going on. So outcomes are better if you have adequate nurses. People die in hospitals from preventable causes, and one way to prevent the causes is to have adequate staffing, nursing staffing. There's a whole number of other things that go into it, but you have to have, it starts at the bedside. You have to have good basic nursing care to prevent the kind of complications that up the costs of being in the hospital. They're dedicated. and somebody ought to be listening to them. They're not there to make a fortune. They're there to take good care of patients. Typically, the doctors don't spend a lot of time with patients in the hospital. There isn't a need to, because they're not doing the hands-on. They're in there to monitor how's the patient doing, looking at the orders, the lab results, et cetera. For the doc going in and making round, it's about perceptions. Nursing care, I've been ringing the buzzer for however long because the bedpan needs changing or something is real. That's just not pleasantries.